2019, let's see, yeah, 2019, I started to say 2018. 2019. Touche. Meetings to order, and for the record, council-wise, we have myself and Mr. Milkovich in the chambers. As anyone would come and go, we will make sure and announce that. All right. Okay. Mr. Fricker, who would like to start for us here? Mr. Fricker?
I'll start. Before we begin with the mayor's office, I'd like to briefly introduce our audit and budget staff who is sitting over here. They're the ones that are primarily responsible for these huge volume of documents that we have right here. So we have Mike Wheeler and Teresa Klein and Liz Clow. So they have been meeting with the departments going back into last fall, sorting through the various line items that we have listed here. So they're the ones that are primarily responsible for what you see before you.
Okay, thank you very much. I know that this is a yeoman's task, so appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Okay, and with that, our first department up is the Office of the Mayor.
Good afternoon. Mr. Hardy and I will be presenting. We thought we'd go over quickly. You should have with you or in some of your packets the city strategy map. We just wanted, do you have that with you guys, or in your notes, the strategy map? Yeah, maybe.
I can make copies.
Yeah, we can make copies if we want.
It's not in the packet you handed out yesterday. This was just an overview.
It might have been via email.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that we distributed the goals that we had received were distributed to the council clerk, so those should be in your
thank you.
Mailboxes.
Yeah, James can make.
Those came from you, correct, Mr. Fricker?
Sorry?
Those came from Mr. Fricker. It was in the big package that you sent.
And then I think one of the girls passed one off as well.
Okay.
I think James can make copies right now for you guys. But I'll just start it as a quick overview. It's pretty similar to last year. We have a lot of initiatives going on, as you know. So, with Mayor's goal of strengthening and growing our population again, the same 4 buckets that we've been kind of working through, we're sticking with in terms of our goals for the city. And we'll go through those very briefly and kind of high level.
Very good.
Did
Thank
we get
you.
more for people?
Holly's going to be bringing them out.
Okay. Holly's going to bring it on. And our 4 main buckets of what we're really trying to focus on with budgeting and Mayor's priorities are increased economic opportunity, improved public life, strong neighborhoods, and then operational efficiency is really where we're going. So just some high-level things in terms of increased economic opportunity. As you know, we're working through with the city, our Office of Integrated Development, and really trying to streamline those operations. Obviously, Elevate Akron has been a big goal between the city, the county, and the chamber in terms of how we boost up the city in terms of economic development. Obviously, focusing on financial empowerment. We have our center open now. We're really trying to uplift Akronites in the greater Akron area with some of the work we're doing in our Financial Empowerment Center. Entrepreneurship and innovation has obviously been really important to us in working with Bounce and just lifting up our small business and our entrepreneurship community. And then really trying to focus on educational attainment where we can in terms of working with APS and the college and career academies, obviously with U of A and how we can always partner with them and increase our partnerships with Stark State as well. So, and Mr. Hardy's passing out the 19 maps right now. So again, nothing really revolutionary in terms of what we're doing. We've been doing this all along, but we're really trying to streamline and keep focused on the areas of importance. And then I'll have Mr. Hardy's about done, and then I'll have him go over quickly improved public life and then stronger neighborhoods, just for a high-level view.
Okay, very good. And I'd just remind each and every one of us that obviously we'll be directing questions, and we do ask that the questions not be centered around program or function, but rather that they be dollars and cents questions. And if we can stay with that format, I think it'll help us to just be a good steward of the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under improved public life, we are going to continue our efforts around city-owned public spaces, i.e. parks, community centers, et cetera, with programming and things like the Akron Parks Challenge, Love Your Park Week, et cetera. Continue to communicate and engage with Akron residents. We do this through a multitude of different venues, but Akron Civic Commons, the mayor's town halls, et cetera. Seek partnerships that can support Akron-based arts and culture to continue to support public art in the city. We'll be continuing our Welcome to Akron signs, but in addition, we'll be partnering with Arts Now on an arts and culture plan, and every single member of council will receive outreach in terms of getting their input on that plan. That's being done by Arts Now. And then prioritize inclusive mobility. So essentially, how do we build streets that work for everybody? Motorists, transit riders, pedestrians, and cyclists. And then under Stronger Neighborhoods, we want to continue to improve our road conditions in partnership with City Council, improve our public safety infrastructure. So those two are right out of chapter and verse of issue 4 and what we've been trying to do there. Continue to prioritize housing, not just with the Planning to Grow Akron report, but with our CDC partners in our neighborhoods. Implement the Downtown Vision Redevelopment Plan, prioritize our neighborhood business districts through the Great Streets program, and continue to promote health equity, specifically youth violence and infant mortality.
And then our final bucket, operational efficiency. I don't believe this wording has changed since we've started the strategy map in 2016. Obviously, enhancing and growing our revenue is increasingly important. We're always going to look for opportunities to do so in a reasonable and fair way. Obviously, control our expenses, figure out how we can leverage our assets, leverage technology, really figure out how we consolidate, we can partner to kind of reduce costs, monetize our assets whenever it makes sense, and then obviously the big one, our CSO project, is to work towards that consent decree and save costs there wherever we can. So these are the main focuses. We just want to give everyone a brief overview as we kind of dive into the particulars. Okay. Mayor's office and administration. We kept it pretty lean. This is again quite an austere budget for the mayor's office. We're down from last year, as you can see. We really tried to focus on increased efficiencies. We're really holding the line on our expenses, on our manpower, everywhere we can. We're down from the mayor's office just about 90,000 from where we were last year. This is primarily just due to reduction in employees as of last year that we're just seeing the true benefits of this year. So that's pretty much the basics, if anybody has any questions.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yeah, not at all.
Questions, comments, before we go any farther, up to this point? Okay, please continue.
Okay. The next two line items, are we going to Peacemakers and Holocaust? Okay. The Peacemakers essentially has been pulled out of Mayor's office, which is now Mayor's Youth Leadership Council. So that's just a dual name for right now as we transition. We applied for funding under Peacemakers, so we can't totally get rid of that name right now, but so now it's just Peacemakers and Mayor's Youth Leadership Council, and that has been switched fully under the HR department, so that was removed from the mayor's office. Holocaust, do you have anything to?
Sure. We've talked about this with City Council before, but you see before you the budget for the Holocaust Memorial Fund, which funds the commemoration and the contest. It's pretty much is what it is, and it has been, but I just want to take the moment to publicly thank the county executive for also chipping in, and so now this is a shared program. Before, up until this year, it was fully funded by the City of Akron. It's now co-funded between the City of Akron and the County of Summit.
Good.
Okay. Do you want to do public safety next? We have auditor down a little bit. It's up to you guys.
Charles is here.
Oh, I can scooch. Do you want to do economic development and then go back?
What's your pleasure, Mr. Chairman? You want us to wait for Deputy Mayor Brown or continue?
Let's go ahead and pop down one just to...
Okay. So next up you have the Office of Integrated Development. This is the first of several implementations you'll see this year. I plan to come to you later in the year with an omnibus around the staffing, et cetera. But essentially you see here what was the Mayor's Office of Economic Development is now where we are starting to build out the Office of Integrated Development. Within our budget, again, pretty flat. We do have a slight increase in labor. That is due in certain respects to half of my time being charged to integrated development now, as well as we did make one additional hire with an Econ 2 to replace Brent Hendren, who retired. So we underfilled that position. So what you see there is essentially the increase in cost of living and half of my time being charged into integrated development.
Okay, I think maybe we can move back up to public safety now. Did I see?
For sure.
We've lost him again.
Charles gets a demerit for the day.
Well, why don't we go ahead and jump down to the incubator? Oh, yes, Ms. Amobian?
Yeah. I want to go back to the integrated
Yes, ma'am.
development. Within the 8.85 employees, who would be in that? Which positions are there?
So just represents those that would have been in the Mayor's Office of Economic Development, plus the new Econ 2 and half of my time. So as we formally build out the Office of Integrated Development through an omnibus legislation that you'll see in the summertime, next year's budget will have the Office of Integrated Development as its own entity. But right now, we're just starting by taking what was the budgeted staff and line items around the Mayor's Office of Economic Development and using that to build it out within the audit and budget function.
That was pretty much what Sam, Adele.
So it's Sam, Adele, Mr. Beckert, Jana, Heather Roschek, Alyssa Gregg, Darren, and then half of my time.
Okay, I was trying to figure out who was there. Okay, thank you.
Very good. All right, now let's jump back up to public safety. Sarah?
Good afternoon, everyone. Each of the leaders of the divisions, police and fire and safety communications, is going to give a brief overview of their goals and accomplishments, and I do brief. So at this time, Chief Ball, can you come up?
This is on, Chief. I got this one on.
And we will be separately presenting police and fire later today. So those are scheduled for today, and there will be a separate section of those budgets presented later today.
Ready to go? Good afternoon, council members. We're going to cover a couple of the goals that we have set for 2019. First of all, as you are aware, we spoke at council a couple weeks ago about reinstituting our full-time police academy in the city of Akron. That is something that's very important to us. We've been working very diligently toward that, have passed some state requirements just in the recent month that have us on pace to be able to realize that and hire a class, and for that to be done in 2019.
I fumble, so I'm going to go first. I'm sorry. I apologize. I got the glare from Mr. Hardy. Okay, so
Pause.
I apologize. Yes. Okay, so right. So some of the 2018 accomplishments that I want to share are instituting our own police academy, and then one of the things I'm most appreciative of is our public safety divisions working together on a concept that's called Rescue Task Force. Some of the council members I know were attending. I know Ms. Sims was able to attend the training over in I think Mr. Fusco as well. It's a concept where we have police and fire working together in a mass casualty event, working together as a team, triaging and treating and transporting individuals who are part of that mass casualty. And then another thing that's important is you guys have noticed we've had several fire-related deaths. So over 4,000 smoke alarms were installed, and that the cooperation between the American Red Cross and our fire department and other volunteers in the community were able to get 4,000 in. Sorry. And in 2019, some of the goals we have is to hire a diverse class of police officers and firefighter medics. The next thing that we think is equally as important is our peer support teams to address the job-related stress and improve employee health. And then the last thing is to increase the number of intelligence products within public safety. And that's it. Thank you.
Did you talk about the, Mr. Chair?
Ms. Moby?
Did you talk about the opioid? Is that one of the initiatives that you accomplished this year?
And Chief Ball is going to talk about one of those, these are my personal highlights that I wanted to share, just a few, so we can make sure we're moving forward.
So this budget really reflects your salary and fringes, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, labor relations?
So,
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to be short. You can look at my budget. If you've got any questions about that, I'll be happy to answer them. There was an increase.
What is he,
Page, please.
Is this on? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
this is 1-09.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, for the record, Deputy Mayor Randy Briggs, here on behalf of Labor Relations. Take a look at any budget changes that I've had. Primarily, there was a budget change because there is a consultant that works with me 3 days a week, Jim Masturzos. He had formerly been on the Department of Law's budget. Going into last year, it was changed over into my budget because he works primarily with me, so that was changed into my budget, and that's primarily...
Is clerical support represented in this budget for them?
No.
Did I answer your question? Did I answer your question? I do get secretarial support from the mayor's office,
Okay,
so...
okay, thank you.
If you want to know what my goals for the coming year are, it is to finish negotiations, which I've been in for some time now. So that's primarily my goal going forward. That's my main focus right now. And my overall goal since I got here is to keep the peace the best I can. So
We like peace.
I'll entertain any questions.
Questions, comments? Ms. Amobian?
I'm looking at the budget. I'm assuming that the fringe benefits would include your health insurance. So this insurance that's listed here is for the facility? Is that what or is that separate?
You would have to ask somebody from
The
finance.
insurance in line item 74, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the insurance on his vehicle. That's the vehicle insurance.
And the rental and leases, what's
So the Labor Relations Division, because of all the moves we did last year with the vacation at the city center, Labor Relations moved over to Ocasek, where they must pay rent now. So that's what that amount represents, the rent paid in the Ocasek building.
the
Other
current
questions, comments?
the current expenditures, other, what's that?
So that is the contract for Jim Masturzo. That's a consulting contract for labor relations.
Like legal fee?
Correct. It's a consulting contract.
Do we have a breakdown of this somewhere?
Yes, we can provide that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we good to move on to police auditor? Yeah.
Ms. Sims, were you waving or asking a question? Wasn't sure.
So on the consultant, is that just an open contract for an annual?
There is a, Steve, if you want to answer, there's a, I think it's a contract month by month. He gets paid hourly based upon how many hours he works.
So it's an open, like an open purchase order for services?
It's actually a contract, but yes, it's for
Yeah, it draws
hourly
down
services,
based
correct.
on
yeah.
services
Yes.
provided. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
So the expenditures for 2018 was $87,000, a little, well, closer to 88. We budgeted for 103, 2019, 104. Do we anticipate something that would require additional hours, that we would increase the amount?
Yeah, negotiations with all 4 units in
Negotiations?
this year, yes.
So were we in negotiations last year? Just clarification.
Yes,
So
in November, we started in October.
when do we anticipate we'll be done with negotiations?
I cannot predict that, to be honest with you. There
No
are
guesstimations?
no guesstimations. We are currently still in negotiations with all 4, and we're continuing to negotiate, so I say that's progress as long as we're still at the table.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, where are we headed next?
Okay, police auditor.
All right, very good.
We have the illustrious Mr. Phil Young here joining us, but just a brief overview. He's obviously very involved in the community, attends a lot of ward meetings, block watch meetings, involved in Night Out Against Crime. He has a nice little summation that we'd be happy to pass out to people as well. But in short, he reviewed 181 cases and about 54 citizen complaints for a total of 235 cases. And his budget is rather flat from last year, with the exception of a reduction in a intern that he had last year and won't be having this year, and that's about the only difference. Do you have anything you'd like to add or ask?
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Young?
I know you used to have support staff, at least part of a person. Do you have any budgeted in here, and this is just your salary?
I think that's just basically salary.
That's where your support staff would be?
I am the support staff.
It's just him. You have no support staff at all?
No, not at this time. Last year I had a part-time intern. She left in August.
Was that a paid intern, or?
Yes.
And you, through the University of Akron?
No, that was, she was hired by the city. She was from Kent State University.
No plans to get another one? I mean, that,
I don't really need one this year. I tried to get as much as I could caught up, and I think I can go a year without one.
oh, okay, thank you.
We'll quote you on that, Phil, when things get real busy. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. Thanks, Phil. Thank you so much.
Okay, public communications. Also a very austere budget. There's some reductions here, again, mainly due to staff reductions that took place last year. So the main line items are going to be regarding postage. We are going to try for a city magazine again this year. We'll be designing in-house, but we will have to pay for postage, so that's one of our main line items. And there's, very small budget demands for services like Constant Contact and SurveyMonkey and some other small things that we use to communicate with people digitally. And then we also rely on printed communications that Lot 3 puts out and things like that to communicate about financial empowerment centers and 311 information and some of that basic city information that we'd like to include in other printed communications as well. And that's the crux of the communications budget. Small but mighty.
Questions, comments? Ms. Mobile?
Just curious, I know from the emails and all the press releases that Ellen, part of her time is for that. Is there a reason we don't have part of her salary there?
her salary has continued to be charged to the law department because she still does have some small duties in regards to the legislation that goes to council. So she has been we continue to charge her to the law department.
Thanks.
Has that been that way the whole time since she was over there?
That is correct.
Okay, interesting.
No, the only reason I asked is because if you ever wanted to know how much you may need in that line item for some future staff person, then you don't have the history of how much time she really spends doing this. And I know she sends out a
Right,
lot
we would
of
have to
press
do a little
releases.
bit more in-depth analysis, but we could do that if we needed to.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Information technology?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the committee, I'd like to invite up Mark Pettit, and Darren Rosnick is here as well.
still a question.
Oh, I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you might have said it, I might have missed it, Ms. McFadden, the $75,000 increase in the budget, that was due to,
The 75 increase from where?
from on communications.
We have a decreased budget.
So am I looking at the, I'm sorry, am I looking at safety communications?
No,
No.
just
Oh.
public communications, which is,
Page 111.
Okay. I withdraw.
okay.
So I'd like to invite up Mr. Pettit, and Mr. Rosnick is here as well to talk about the IT budget for 2019. You stand up?
Hi, Mark Pettit, the Chief Information Officer for the city. Before you have our budget. It represents an increase of about $80,000. Some of the changes from last year to this year are decrease in maintenance costs, some increase in contract services to implement some systems. This year, coming up, our strategies are to focus on improving our security posture, improving our disaster recovery, finding ways to improve efficiencies within the departments that we serve, and continue to utilize our relationship with the Office of Information Technology at the county. I really don't have much else to say. Any questions?
Has this budget been retrofitted since our recent problem?
So I will say that, and Mark is absolutely the person to answer, from a strategic point of view, but from the mayor's office point of view, as I've said before, this is a bigger fix than simply what you see here in the operating budget. There are going to be capital expenses, i.e. New servers, new server system, looking at different software, pieces of software, et cetera, that are definitely going to be a part of it. That's not to minimize. In fact, the staffing is a critical component of that, but I invite Mark to elaborate on sort of the plan going forward, given our recent cyber attack.
So I think it's important to note that built into this operational budget, that we have earmarked funds to improve our stance in the areas that I mentioned. We're also developing strategies as to how we can interact with other agencies such as the county to improve our stance from a support standpoint. Also, how we can utilize additional cloud technologies. We're using some now. Potentially get out of the data center business that we fund on the 8th floor of this building and have a more efficient operating budget. We want to minimize capital expenses moving forward year to year that we put into infrastructure and servers, and potentially take that to data center platforms in the cloud that have a more fixed operating budget. So security and disaster recovery are really high on the list to continue to improve that posture.
And I would only add that the county is having very similar conversations around security and disaster recovery. So One of the beauties of this partnership is that Mark's able to guide both institutions toward better solutions, and we have better purchasing power when we get to those solutions.
Mr. Fusco?
Yeah, just curious, and I applaud the efforts of the administration to partner with the county on this, without question. However, though, my question basically is are there other partners? Is it just Summit County and the city of Akron, or is your office the county IT also responsible for other entities?
So, yes, there are other partners. The strategy I see, given the lay of the land that I've seen at the county and the city, is our intergovernmental relationships are of value. The staffing that I have at the county are relatively strong in their knowledge, and I think that's an opportunity to have a key consulting relationship with the county at a decreased cost as to what it would cost to go to other partners outside. But we also do have other private sector partners that help us implement, key business systems as we improve our backup system, our email system. So it's not just with the county, it's with other private sector partners. From a strength of IT organization within the county, there really aren't too many others that have the depth other than the county team.
Mm-hmm. And like other governmental entities as well? Are there other
So I have built relationships with other governmental agencies statewide. We've had conversations with the CIO's office for the state as to where they potentially offer hosting and or staffing, and we continue to have those
very
relationships.
good stuff. Now that's the kind of answers I think we should be looking for in terms of these partnerships and trying to, get that, get I can't think of the term off the top of my head, but discounted purchasing, if you will, for lack of, in its simplest terms.
So the state does a lot of negotiation on software and contractual contracts that we leverage regularly.
It's almost as if there's, in this case, the more cooks in the kitchen, perhaps the better off it's going to turn out. So I think that is good, and utilizing that, it's wonderful. Thank you.
Take the question in just a moment. The numbers question here, labor is up, fringe benefits is up. What, if I missed it?
So there's the labor increase as a result of the 2% wage increases. Plus, last year, we did not have the entire staff of 9 for the entire year. So you see that last year's expenses were only $561,000, and that's because we were not fully staffed. We had some other people that came over from other departments that are now charged to the IT division. So that's why that amount is a little bit less in 2018.
Okay. Ms. Keith, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark, first of all, I don't think I've had the privilege to thank you for taking us through a very scary time. And you just mentioned that $80,000 will be on improving security posture. Would you be able to give me, you listed a number of things that you were going to do. If I may have that, because I want to assure my residents that I speak to of what we're doing, because this tends to be now the buzzword, okay? And we don't understand all the details of it. But if you would be so kind as maybe give all of us a little bit of where that 80,000 is going to explicitly go, so that we can support them when they look at this budget. Because you spoke very well. I was trying to write it down as fast as I can. And the other thing is $80,000 enough?
Well, there's never enough to put into security.
True.
It's a constant battle. And security is means a lot of different things. I mean, to employee education programs, to we have a relatively good footprint at the endpoint, the antivirus components that we have, and anti-malware. Monitoring of that will be one portion of this, to either put in better monitoring systems to be aware when events are happening on our network, or to outsource that to a data center-like company that can monitor. It's called a Security Operations Center. So the additional development of that, and have tools, better tools than we have now, to monitor what's happening on our network. So when a threat happens at a particular computer, that it can be contained and not spread east to west on our network.
And will the 80,000, will we see that in, do you believe, I know you can't predict, but do you believe that this will be a standard of, there will be so much set aside every year around in this ballpark to keep us current and up to date with everything else?
Yeah, a lot of the numbers within this budget pertain to contract services for things that we proactively maintain. Our data center, our servers, our security. $80,000 probably won't just go to security. There might be a few more dollars in here that add to that. But we constantly look at all facets of our software and our application strategy, our infrastructure, and our security and our disaster recovery to make sure that we're investing at a reasonable level so that we can keep these systems up and running and secure.
Thank you for all you do.
And just to add to that, I think in being completely above board and full disclosure, and we've talked about it before, I fully expect that Mark and Finance and us will come back to this council as Mark builds out the plan for the new server network and things like that, that are not necessarily operating, but rather some of those larger expenditures to build our infrastructure, or rather rebuild it in a more secure fashion. So, you know, this isn't everything. I think Mark is still expeditiously, and he's been keeping all of us informed, working through that plan. So I don't know when, but I think, correct me, Mark, but I think it's very likely that we'll be back this year with more details around how to build on the infrastructure side, the hardware piece of it.
Thank you.
Ms. Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although I do too appreciate maximizing our purchasing power in the intergovernmental relations piece, but what I'm most challenged by is the absence of report back. When we started down this track to have this intergovernmental relations, we're looking at how we function and how we could function more efficiently with utilizing the brain power that's over there, but I really haven't seen a plan. So to be quite frank, when we had the breach, I really didn't know where to go. I mean, I didn't know if this is breaching just on our side, or is this county, or how is this? So it'd be helpful to get a report back about how things are going thus far. And so when you come back and ask for additional dollars to buy whatever equipment, we kind of have a better sense of what the plan is. That would be helpful for me. I'm not speaking on behalf of my colleagues, but I know it would be helpful for me.
We can certainly do that. I would ask, what types of things would you like, just so we can make sure it's responsible? Would you like to know?
I thought there was a laid out plan, like even the 9 employees, I don't know where they come from. Are those the 9 that from here, or so we're utilizing from the county? Or what that whole picture looks like would be helpful.
We can absolutely put that together, I think, and then Mark, please chime in. I think from our perspective, I think it's important for council to know that the IT function at the city, much like the HR function prior to 2016, was spread out in every single department. There was no centralized Office of Information Technology. So one of the first things that we did with this council is we did an internal consolidation, which represents the 9 people. That's what Steve was talking about in terms of bringing together those folks who touch IT in the way you and I think about it into one central area so that we can service the city better. It's no secret that we used to have a lot more employees that did this stuff. We are now down to 9, and that's just the budgeted. It's incredible the amount of work that this team does with very limited, just like every department in the city, very limited resources. That being said, we are faced still, but we were faced when we struck this intergovernmental agreement with an essential choice. Either we were going to hire 30-year employees, and I mean lots of them, Or could we find synergies between the county and others to partner on these things? As I said, he's got security and, or he is us, but the county has security and disaster recovery needs. We have security and disaster recovery needs. The University of Akron has disaster recovery needs. There's got to be a way we can do this smarter, and we've been working through that plan. So we can absolutely, we've got some data to show you and give you that update, and we'll do it. But if we don't partner, the only other option is a substantial investment in people that you are making a commitment for 30 years. And Mark has educated lots of us, I mean, keeping them trained, keeping them at the latest level of tech. It's really hard. Even the best employees have a hard time keeping up, and we have to be honest with ourselves in terms of how much we've done over the years in terms of invest in IT training. And so lots and lots of organizations are starting to go the route that we're starting to go. Is it perfect? No. But I think the alternative is something that we can't afford, and probably, in my opinion, and I think in the mayor's opinion, isn't smart either, because we're never going to be able to get to the staffing level and the level of expertise that we can get by partnering. But Mark, I don't know if you got.
So I'm not submitting to you in any shape, form, or fashion there's something not good about this. What I'm submitting is that we're talking about additional dollars to do a lot more things, and we've never seen the initial plan, at least from the point we came into agreement. I don't think there's, as you know, no greater commodity that we have in the city than the data that we collect within the city. And so just understanding what the plan is, that's all. We may, in fact, look at the plan and say, well, under the circumstances and with the advancement of technology, maybe this is where we need to invest. But I don't know that because I don't know what the plan is. That's all I'm submitting, not
Understood.
that we don't need to have intergovernmental relations.
So the mayor has asked me to develop that plan, and I am in the middle of developing that plan, and it will have the level of detail I think that will satisfy you.
Thank you, sir.
Smobian?
As little as I know about technology, I totally agree with the statement you made, James. I don't know of any governmental entity that can afford to stay current with technology. Matter of fact, I probably need to change my phone, but I don't want to. But I just want to go to the one question on the interfund service charges. What exactly is that? It was huge in 2017, and it's gotten very small later. Can you tell us what went into that?
Yeah, so those typically are like storeroom charges, the mailroom charges, that type of thing. The reason why the amount was large in 2017 is because the IT fund did not bring in enough revenue in 2016, and therefore was advanced money from one of the other funds. And they had to repay that money in 2017. So that's the reason for that, that large amount there.
Thank you.
Question, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, one of my favorites. So this is the budget block 3 this year. It's essentially a flat budget, same staffing levels, same line items for the most part, slight differences between them. Happy to take questions.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, that does it for Mayor's office.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I'm happy to know. I can wait.
113.
Okay. Mr. Fusco, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. This is, I think the other, probably our assumptions are accurate in saying that's talent under this budget.
Oh, yes. So current expenditures is paying for the, all of the things that we do down at Lot 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
Primarily the talent, as well as we have an agreement with the Civic that's
It's
included?
the agreement,
there?
it's agreement with the Civic, it's the talent, it's the different contracts we have, for example, with like Miller's Tents, when we have events that need
Gotcha.
tents and things like that. So, yes, that is correct.
Yeah, has done a great job. It referenced the recreation survey that was conducted. Was there any surveying done with regards to the kind of talent that's brought in, or, you know, where people are from? I know that there's quite a few folks come in from out of town to enjoy the shows that we have there from time to time, especially in the summer, obviously. Do we collect that data, or does the Civic or anyone, or?
We have collected that data on Lock 3, so...
I apologize, it's probably
No.
specific to
So on that question, the last time we...
I apologize.
The last time we collected that data, and I can get the specifics, but if memory serves, about 50-50 split. So about 50% of the people that come to Lock 3 live in the city, about 50 live in the surrounding areas. And you're right, I have a lady that calls me almost every year, at least the years that I've been here, making sure that her favorite tribute band is going to be there, and she is from Toledo. But it's the cheapest place she can see that band. So it is a huge regional draw. Incredibly, Lock 3 continues to up its total number of guests every year. We're into the 300,000s now annually that come through Lock 3 of unique visitors. To the other piece about the recreation survey, Lock 3 did come up quite a bit because citizens don't know the difference how we organize ourselves in the city. So it came up a lot in the open-ended questions in terms of a lot of positive, but also wanting to see it be more park-like when it's not a concert venue. So how can Lock 3 be more inviting as a park for people to come and have lunch, walk around, sit, do different things? There was a fair amount of suggestions around how do we build on the Akron Children's Museum in terms of having some outdoor play. At Lock 3 for children downtown, there really isn't a playground downtown in that particular area. Additionally, we just a few months ago, which I've been meaning to send to council and I will do as soon as I get back to the office, we put out a general survey to anyone to suggest which headliner they would like to see for Old School Soul. I don't say it was the first time we've done that, but it was one of the first times we actively promoted citizens to tell us who they wanted us to hire for that gig. And we got a lot of responses. It was very robust. Some folks aren't alive anymore that were suggested, but the ones that were, we've been able to utilize that, hopefully, to put together a good show. So I will share that with council. So we are, we also, through Civic Commons, recently completed in 2018 what we called a stakeholder survey. So people who live or work around Lock 3, and then folks that utilize Lock 3. So we surveyed people as they came down to events last summer to see how we were doing. And interestingly, they said the same thing. The number one thing was, how can it be more like a park when it's not a concert? So everybody loves the concerts for the most part. People are digging the live music. It's when it's not a concert venue, they want to see other activities, or at least more of a park-like atmosphere. There's even down to the fence on Main Street. There's a lot of folks that are like, get rid of the fence. Now, the fence is there also because we have a liquor license, but we want to be creative in responding to that request. So people want to feel more like a park when it's not there for a concert.
Thank you. Sorry, Chairman, I deviated from the, sorry. I deviated, I went off budget, so I apologize.
There'll be a memo in your box.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
And I should know, this obviously covers operating. Was there anything in the capital budget?
There was. We upped it this year. Lock 3 has a lot of deferred maintenance.
Okay.
It's been zeroed out in the capital budget, not completely zeroed out, but very low. So we put $100,000 specifically to replace the fence that goes along the canal, which is, it's safe. I don't want to alarm anybody, but it's in need of replacement. We don't want anyone falling in the canal.
Okay, very good. Mr. Mobian?
Just curious, does this include Lock 4, the ice skating rink and all of those?
Yes, ma'am.
Everything? Okay, thank you.
Ms. Sims?
So on the nearly $500,000 labor cost, there's 3 FTEs. Can you explain those? Is that like 90 people that equates to 3 full-time people?
That's correct.
See,
So,
I'm
no. What those are, so there are 3 full-time people. So Tish Jernigan, Greg Obringer, and Chris Griffith are the full-time staff at Lock 3, but then we staff Lock 3 with seasonals, much like recreation. So seasonals are included in the labor line item. So it is like 90 people, but there are only 3 full-time staffers.
Okay, so which part of, if you were to combine all of those seasonal folks, how would that equate as it relates to a FTE or a PTE?
I'd have to look at that.
I was just trying to, because I'm trying to divide, 3
Sure.
full-time people into $500,000, and that's a lot. So if I could see it and how that would equate to make more sense on that. The other thing was on the rental lease, what was that? So it looks like it was $10,000 in 18, rental and lease, it was $10,000 in 18.
Yes.
And then we spent $38,000.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we went back down to 10,000. Is there any particular reason? Is there something that's changing that you won't spend that much?
Sure, I can answer that. Our chiller died.
What?
Our chiller died on the tree lighting day, and we had to scrap it and rent a new chiller to get through Winterfest. So we have.
You showed me because I thought you said our chiller died.
No. Our chiller, our 15-year wonderful chiller for the ice rink died. Yes, so we rented one to get through this year, but we have a solution going forward, so we should not
So
need
did
to.
we buy one of our own?
We
or-
did. We
Okay.
did, and that one lasted 15 good years, but it died finally.
So is this a new one?
So we are hoping to have a solution. We're working actually in partnership with AES, Akron Energy Systems, the steam plant, to figure out a permanent solution to where we won't have to rent or buy a chiller anymore. They're going to be able, we think, provide the coolant needed to operate the ice rink.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments?
One more. I know we talked, at least the 3 years I've been here, about beverage sales at Lock 3. Were we able to create a method for discerning the sale of beer versus soda?
Let me get with Tish, but I believe what we can get you, I will get you what we have.
Okay.
But I don't know, I think we do, but let me check with Tish.
I thought at some point we were working on some way
We
to
are.
code it and.
It's another one of those wonderful deferred maintenance. We need to buy a new point of sale system. We've bought so last time we talked, we did move forward with a new software system, so that's why I think we can break it out. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say that at some point I'm going to ask finance for new cash registers. But this year, we do have the new software, and we can do credit cards, for example, in the booths and things. So I think we can break that out, but let me get with Tish, and I will get back with you.
Can we program to break it out since we're going to be using credit cards? Is it possible to do that?
For sure. I know for sure with credit cards we can. What I'm wondering is with our old cash registers, when we take cash transactions, that might be difficult to break it down. I
Who
don't know.
carries cash, Mr. Hardy? Who carries?
I don't, but other people do. I don't know
Thank
why,
you.
but there you go. Yes.
Mr. Bobby?
Have we always used JED funds to support Lock 3?
I'm going to defer to finance on that.
We have. We regard Lock 3 as type of a regional asset, benefits not just Akron citizens, but citizens from all of the suburbs around Akron, and the JED funds are meant to provide funding for regional type operations, so that's why Lock 3 has always been charged through the JED fund.
So I'm going to remember that for regional. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Does that wrap it up for you? Okay, so I think we're going to move into legislative budget here. And Mr. Keith, we're going to hear from you.
Speaker can bail me out. Okay. Do I look low in this seat? Because it feels low. Okay. In front of you, you have pretty much two budgets, council clerk's office, and then you have legislative budget for members of council. Before I start and say anything, I have not had a chance to talk with President Somerville over this budget. I don't know that much will change, but she's the boss, so I want to run it past her. I'm happy with this budget. Anything that I've needed and asked for, we have received. If you people want something particular for council, as long as it's not a huge expense, I know we do have to upgrade the recording system right in here. It's old, it's outdated. We're waiting to get a price from IT. Other than that, there's really no changes as far as I can see, but again, I want the president to review it. If you guys see something that you have a question about, feel free to ask.
Is that, the recording, is that in here anywhere? I just see maintenance of office equipment. I don't.
No, it isn't.
Okay.
So,
You know, cost-wise, what we're looking at?
I don't know yet. We've
Okay.
Sarah's checked with IT, they're looking at a price and see what it costs. That computer as well, I think, is outdated.
Ms. Keith?
I'm not sure, Mr. Clerk, if you're able to answer this question. It's underneath the legislative one. Okay, so it's not under the clerk.
Okay.
Or should I reserve that question for the president?
Pardon me?
Should I reserve the question for the president, or do you want to take a stab at it?
I could take a stab at it, but
Okay, it's on line 70414.
dues
which
and
is-
membership?
Yes.
Right.
In 2018, we have budgeted $100, and somehow it's $3,750. Maybe Mr. Fricker.
Go ahead, Steve. I think it's the National League of Cities is part of that.
You talking about 300 and 210? It says 70414?
704.
Yeah, so that is actually, it's a Leadership Akron membership. So one of the council members was a part of Leadership Akron in 2018.
Oh,
Where are you?
We're on page 2-2.
so the membership, what is the membership to Leadership Akron?
Where is it?
It's pretty pricey.
Well,
Right, $3,750.
and who was the member? You don't know?
We'll get that.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine. I mean, that's great that someone was able to, that's a lot
I
of
think
money.
it was Margot, wasn't it?
I think it was Margot.
Margot?
She's currently in Leadership Akron.
Right, right. Have we had people to go before? Council? Yeah, I know that we had school board folks to go. Where is it? I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, I'm thrown here because on my line,
Oh, it's on the
70414,
third page.
I've got $300 budgeted and what Bob has given to us.
Right, so yeah, she was referring to the actual, so there's two budgets, well, there's actually three. There's the clerk of
Okay,
council,
I
that's the first one. The council itself is the second one, and then the
Okay, I was
criminal
looking
improvement
at the
fund.
clerk of council's budget.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I see that as the same as going to any other educational conference or whatever. You use whatever your allotment is. You can use it for whatever reason, and that would be comparable to going to a conference. Because conferences with the hotel and registration and all of that would probably be close to that. I mean, those who want to apply to go and you get accepted, and you want to use your, whatever money that's set
I
aside.
mean, that'll be up to council if they want to
Yeah.
send somebody else, leadership accurate, or,
Well,
but,
we didn't approve her going, and I don't know if you, like, if I want to go to a conference, I just tell the president I want to go. And she just charges the registration, all that to her credit card.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've kind of jumped from yours into ours here.
That's fine.
That was my mistake, I apologize. Well, this is our budget, so I would,
I mean, I would look at it,
I would
get
say if
back to
there's
me
anything
and
we
or Margot.
see, we would want to talk to President Somerville.
Sure.
And we have time to make any adjustments that we might want to see to this, but
It's pretty cut and dry. I mean,
I know I had questions about the Kenmore Improvement Fund. That is,
What page is that, Mr. Chair?
that would be the very last.
Very last page, that is page 2-3.
The one you were trying to explain to me about the other day.
I'm sorry?
The one that I asked you the question about, you were explaining.
Correct, yeah, this simply, I'm not even sure who set this arrangement up. This has been in existence for a long time.
Correct.
But back in, I think clear back to when it was Diamond Crystal even, I believe, but there's a stipend off
So there's
each well.
lease revenues that come in each year that are roughly $9,000 a year that can be spent. They're designated for spending in the Kenmore ward.
And there's been years, I know there's been years where significant distributions have been made out of it. And then there's, like last year, we kind of said, ooh, we've given a lot of money out of this fund. Let's try to build the fund back up some. So there's only a few $100.
Right, so right now there's about $14,000 in the fund.
Right. So, and I think at one time there could have been as high as 60 or 70 in there.
But I believe council had before it in legislation yesterday, the Cargill salt lease. So the amount that we will be receiving will continue to go up, and there'll be an escalator each year.
So I would say, I'd say to each and every one of you, get your own salt company in your ward. Miss Sims.
I'm sure you lobbied for it and got it.
On the line item for council, is there any reason why we don't have like a supply line item? And the other question is, why is the white space contract not under council?
So the white space is there. It's under, that's going to be under account 70127 in the council budget. As far as the supply line items, there's probably, I do see 70020 for office supplies. There's $500 there. And then there is also $100 down in the inter-fund storeroom supplies line item. Now, that's just for council. On the clerk side, there is $1,500 in for office supplies and $15,000 for inter-fund storeroom supplies.
So just
Now,
for point of clarification.
I'm going to guess that the inter-fund storeroom supplies, or we'll look at this, I'm going to guess that is probably advertising in the Beacon Journal for the ordinances that have to be published in the Beacon Journal. So that's why that line item is so large.
The line, what item is that, 7?
That's 80025 in the clerk's office budget.
So are we saying, just for clarification, 70127 special services is the
That is the white space contract, correct?
$1,400?
No, it's, we are budgeting $76,000 for that.
He said 70127. 70127, third page. Oh. You should diversify your numbers. Oh, 76, So this is the one, the 7102? Yeah, clerk, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else? Feel free to, I have to run this past President Somerville anyway, so
Yes.
you have time to,
So the heater in my office has been clacking for about a month. Is that inside the budget to fix? Because it is terrible. It's terrible, honestly.
I will have some
Can you-
maintenance look at it.
I'd
As well
appreciate
as I
that.
think all those along that wall,
Oh, it's terrible. Thank you.
it keeps you awake.
It's insanity.
Means you're getting heat, though.
Called old pipes.
Great.
And maybe they could bleed it once the summer comes and then see if
Mr.
it'll go
Mogan.
away.
I'm just curious, do we have a capital line item, like for new chairs? Do we have something in our budget for that?
That would be located here, so there is an office equipment and furniture. If there's something budgeted that year under that line item, it would show up here. For instance, we had the carpeting in 2017 show up in the council budget.
Now, where is that, you said?
That is on the third page of the handout that Bob passed out.
And what is,
So there's, this year, there's nothing budgeted for office equipment or furniture, so it doesn't show up here.
Carpeting took 4 years to get approved.
So we got the lobby 4 years ago.
So I would put your request in now for 2023.
Okay, put it down. We need chairs. These are the worst chairs in the world. Okay, thank you.
Unless you have the Kenmore Fund.
Don't look at me. Unless you're going to sit in that chair in the 9th Ward.
Anything else? Okay.
You might have said this, and I apologize if you did. The travel budget was reduced by 5,000. Why was that?
I have no idea what they talked about.
Yeah, that was a discussion with the council clerk, or, I'm sorry, with the president of council when they met and discussed the budget, so that's what we budgeted. Yeah, typically, and that's probably the decision behind it, so, right, we only used 23,000 out of the 40.
So in 2018, we used 23,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, having said that, there's probably, and I don't think it gets up to the full 40,000, but because most of the travel expenditures are done via the credit card, there were probably some unallocated travel charges that really were from 2018 that will hit in 2019.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Keith, and I assume that any of our members here see some changes that you'd like made. It'd be a conversation to have with President Somerville.
Send her an email or help, let her know if you see anything with this.
That's it. All right. Thank you, Mr. Keith. All right, we're into public safety now. Mr. Brown.
Okay, I'll push rewind and have Chief Ball come back up.
Hello again.
Okay, let me press play here. You can continue on.
You ready? Okay. As I started to mention, one of the important goals for us in 2019 is reestablishing our citizens, or our police academy full-time. We are well on our way toward all of the putting the steps in place that are necessary in order for us to be there, and it's expected that that will occur in November of 2019. We're also in the middle of recruiting for a new class that will fill that academy. And as of mid-last week, we had over 500 applicants, so we are pleased with the progress to this point, and we'll continue, hopefully finish very strong with that effort. One of the additional items with that academy is that we are working on contracts now that would allow us to host outside agencies. So we would have students that were hired by other departments. It was something that we had done in the past, and it will help us to increase our income and offset some of the costs that are involved with that. We just started last week a Citizens Academy. That was a goal that we had set for 2018. We had our first class of 14 students that are members of the community that are invited in for a multi-week exposure to Akron Police Department, to our culture and to our training. And the next session of that is going to be on Wednesday, and we really look forward to being able to continue and improve that program. So far, the responses have been very, very positive. We have a new leadership academy that is being planned right now. We have our curriculum all outlined. Today, tomorrow, and Thursday, we have candidates within the police department that are competing for promotional opportunities at the level of sergeant and lieutenant to fill vacancies that we've had for an extended period of time. When those persons are promoted, we plan to have in place a training on leadership and all the elements of leadership that can help to continue to build what we have inside of the police department, aiming to be the best law enforcement agency that we possibly can, and knowing that that's such an important part of growing. We look forward to 2019 in inviting. We've partnered with Lexipol, which is a company that funds were approved for Issue 4 funding that will help us to digitize our policies and procedures. This will allow us to be much more nimble for the changes that occur. Any new court rulings would automatically be entered into our policies and procedures, our rules and regulations, so that they stay current. And it also gives us a benefit from the standpoint of liability within the department to make sure that we always have the most current versions of best practices. Where 1,400 organizations throughout the United States that are involved in law enforcement are partnered with Lexipol and are customers of theirs. We have recently seen some of the first evidences of a new system that was purchased called which is a 360-degree digital scanner, which allows us to go out at crime scenes and at significant auto accidents and to use technology to digitize those scenes and to be able to map all of them, so we no longer will be doing crime scene sketches or accident scene sketches that will be used in our most serious cases that we investigate. And so far, the early indicators are that technology is going to be really a jump for us in what we do from a crime scene development standpoint. You each are aware that we have begun the steps for a feasibility study for a new Safety Forces Center. There are many challenges in the building that we are in currently. Our electrical, plumbing, other infrastructures are significantly outdated. We had plans for improvement in some of our workspaces in 2018. Those were put on hold because we are constantly weighing the benefit of spending money inside of that building versus being able to do something outside. One of the significant challenges right now is it being a 9-story building, police using approximately 4 of those floors, the public being in and out with regularity. I'll give you a quick example. We have 5 elevators in the building, and at any point in time, we are fortunate if 4 more are running, and the early estimates for cost for repair would be over $250,000 a piece for that. And with the public coming in each day for the courts, for the clerk of courts, for the prosecutor's office, it's not something that can go without further attention. But we want to be wise stewards and make sure that we're going to spend our monies in the best way. And right now, we've set aside $550,000 to start a savings fund toward a new center. And then also some of those funds will be used for a feasibility determination, as I mentioned earlier. And those are highlights from our goals and accomplishments, and I would be certainly more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Sergeant Captain, you said that's happening right in the city building right now, isn't it?
They are Sergeant Lieutenant level.
Sergeant Lieutenant, yeah. Okay, good. You said we have over 500 applicants?
We had 500 as of midweek last week. Applications do not close until, I believe, mid to late April. So we are continuing to use the 5 people that we have temporarily assigned full-time for recruiting. They are out attending events and working promotions, developing website improvements, making videos, doing our very best to try to get the word out and not just have, increase the number of applicants, but have qualified applicants and a diversity of applicant that is important for the reputation of the police department and for services that we offer to the citizens of this community.
When you're recruiting, does that hit your budget pretty hard? I mean, it's got to be additional man hours, it's got to be...
We did. It's 5 officers that we put in the office full-time, so we take them for other assignments in the police department. There are occasions when we have to fill those voids with overtime, but we did plan for it in 2019, knowing that we had those as goals for 2019, so we are using funds from issue 4 to help to offset that as much as possible.
Okay, very good. Questions, comments? Ms. Sims? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Mobian.
You may have said this before, and I heard it clearly the other night when one of the officers was at a ward meeting recruiting, that 100% of the people who come through the academy training from outside of the city of Akron, they go through the training, they work, and when they get opportunities to leave, it's like 100% of them have left the force.
I'm sorry, I'm not... Could you speak a little bit
I'm
louder,
sorry, I
a
thought
little more directly?
I'm sorry. He was telling us that 100% of the people who go through the training, who come to the police department from outside of the city, they tend to leave after they benefit from training, they work a while. When there's an opportunity for them to leave, they leave the force. And most of those folks that have left, he said, have been from outside of the city. That's why they're recruiting so hard to get folks from inside the city to work.
That number was misstated. We have approximately 3 per year that leave the department for reasons that are unexpected, for jobs with other agencies. So that is...
But I think it was saying that 100% of those that leave are usually they live outside of the city. I don't know if that's...
Okay, now that's a statistic that I'm familiar with that may be true, but that number is extremely small. Okay. And we have concentrated our recruiting efforts to be much, much more localized during this particular service. We are outside of Summit County for some of those efforts, but we are putting a much greater concentration and focus on doing the recruiting inside of Akron.
Right. And that's what he said. Maybe I just stated it a different way. Where's the money coming from? The ones that we're hoping to add to the force. I know we're down, but are we down to the number that, because I know we have, how many are we planning, hoping to recruit?
Ms. Bowie, I'm sorry, I'm still having problems hearing you.
Now, my voice, I didn't know was that soft and sexy, but how many are we planning to recruit, and then the funds to pay for them, where would that money be coming from? I know we're going to pay for the academy and all of that. Where are we looking to take that money from? Is that from issue 4 or what?
Yes, that money's going to be, to maintain our staffing levels, that money's going to come from issue 4.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the report and your vision. So one of the things I was hoping to hear is plans, even if they're incorporated into some of your new academies, about how we're looking to address gun violence as a public health crisis in our city, and what resources we're allocating to that end. I know we talked about cameras, we've had some reviews of stuff like ShotSpotter, and so I'd be interested to know, not detailing a plan, but there's an intentional effort to really get at this issue around gun violence in our city. Last night, as you know, I had a friend's mother who was hit by a stray bullet, classmate's mom, so that it still remains a real issue. Summertime is coming. I was hoping that we could talk about what resources we're allocating. And my hope is, as we bring in the new academies, that they have some exposure to some of that challenge too, so they can see really what the cost is to a community when gun violence is a challenge for that community.
I would certainly say there's not a member of the Akron Police Department who isn't aware of the significance and the impact that it causes in our community.
I was referencing the folks who come through the academies. Your 2 new academies, the lay folks that come through and learn about the academy. But more specifically, kind of what resources we're allocating to get at the issue.
The department made a proposal for a grant. This was a little over a month ago for funds from the,
I know it's North
Project Safe Neighborhoods.
Yeah, but it goes through Northeast Ohio Crime Consortium, and within that is a program called Project Safe Neighborhoods. You can go from there.
And we are competing with the 8 other largest law enforcement agencies in Northeastern Ohio for those monies. That plan that was laid out was exactly the way that we were going to approach it, and it's using intelligence and using data that we are able to generate inside of the police department to attack those very specific problems. We have a gun violence reduction team that we utilize in that capacity. They're working more closely with the Division of ATF from the federal government. They are now working in our detective bureau with our detectives on those matters so that we can leverage the additional manpower and the additional resources that the federal government brings in. We are also utilizing federal charges against the most violent offenders and the repeat offenders so that the sentencing will be appropriate and keep them off the streets and insulate our citizens from individuals who have proven again and again that they promote or create a threat to our people. And we also have a meeting that's scheduled tomorrow morning. We're gonna continue to review our plans. We do that with great regularity to make sure that we're meeting the needs. As far as significant crime in the city, all of our crime areas are down in 2019, and that's a small sample, and it can change dramatically with an increase, a slight increase. But the only crime statistic in a major category that's up in 2019 are those felonious assaults. So we're aware of it. We are working on it. We do have a plan.
So with regards to the grants, and I won't debate the issue about the impact of specific crimes, particularly gun violence, because I think what that impact is on our neighborhood. And so whether we're counting widgets or we're talking about the impacts on communities is, I'm sure we can probably debate that, but my biggest concern is what resources we intentionally have earmarked for that. And with regards to the grant, how much was the grant for? So all I'm asking for, and maybe it's going to the drawing board, and that we really prepare to have a specific plan to help us as council members, that we can kind of help you to kind of allay some of the fears that are in our community around gun violence. I know, we did the In the Chair, which you did a tremendous job there at BBC, just connecting with you, but I think that our community wants to know that there's things we are doing specifically to get at this. And all of what you said are grand ideas, but I mean, an overall plan would be helpful to know, and that we're intentionally setting resources aside to address that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would speak to that, the problem is not unique to Akron. As a matter of fact, compared to other cities that are of our size and similar demographics, our numbers are very favorable concerning that, and it doesn't make a 79-year-old woman who was caught in the crossfire feel any better about it. It doesn't make the people at Crozier and Princeton feel any better about it. But with social media and access to information, it feels as if everybody is feeling the same thing, so we deal with that regularly. We're trying to figure out ways that we can address it with the resources that are available. That's always a challenge, is what are the resources that are available to us, because we still have other crimes to investigate. So it is a difficult issue, but the reality in a big picture standpoint, if we're looking at it, we are doing very favorably on in a number of these different areas, and that's what the facts are. It seems different when we're bombarded with information that's available instantly through social media networking. Doesn't mean we're going to stop, and we're not going to be sensitive to our community and understand their needs. We can constantly work toward that, but there's also important to it is important to inject perspective at the same time.
Chief, no indictment of you personally. I think I got a good sense of your heart. But when you have neighbors feeling like they're living in a war zone with gunfire that seems to go off 24 hours a day, I personally have a bullet through my kitchen window to my refrigerator. So it's not, I don't know what perspective we're talking about. I know that people want to know that there is an intentional plan. That's all I'm saying. And I was hoping that as we talked about resources today, that we're talking about earmarking specific resources in a plan for getting at that, whether it's the education of how real this issue is as they come through your academy, or whatever other ways we identify how we reduce the proliferation of guns in the community. So again, not a personal indictment of you, but I'm saying my perspective is a bullet through my kitchen window to my refrigerator.
I understand that, and I didn't want to come across defensive.
Oh,
I don't feel that way.
I don't want to.
But I appreciate that it's important for us to hear that perspective.
If I don't appreciate what you do, because that's not the case. But by the same token, there's an expectation in the community and a concern that I can't say to a parent, its perspective is very real. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fusco.
Thank you, Chairman. 3. I don't know if there's a plan. I know that we currently partner with the county in terms of disaster services. Whenever there's an emergency, we have the center, the secret center downstairs. But my kind of concern is that it's not a question of whenever that's going to be needed and activated. It's like when it's going to be needed and activated. When was the last, Diane, you probably remember this, years and years ago, I know the administration had taken with police and fire and et cetera, a training out of town, but it was very meaningful from everyone that I'd spoke to about it. And I don't know if we have, I know you may have practice runs with the sheriff's department, et cetera. It feels like, and I don't know, you tell me, I mean, that this seems low in terms of how much to budget for emergency management. I know the county has stepped up and they do quite a bit, but it seems like we should have more training. It seems like we should put some more resources in this and be prepared, because like I said, it's, we've been fortunate, and you never know when that's going to happen, but over our history, it's like every 10, 15 years, something happens. And I guess I'm asking, are we ready? And if we are, fine. If we're not, we should look at this. And seriously, I'm asking the police, I'm asking fire to please look at this. And if we need to do something, let's have a real conversation about it and figure out what that should be, be it training or what have you. I'm just asking a question.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to share what we're doing with regard to public safety, not only in the city, but regionally.
Emergency management.
Right. So on May 29th, senior leaders in our cabinet and other folks who may be on the bench for a situation as it relates to redundancy or continuity are getting trained. So that's the first part of the morning. And the second half of the morning, it's the afternoon, the county officials will be doing the same exact thing. So we'll be able to work together as a team. Through EMA and other committees that these two gentlemen sit on and others that may be in the room, they did a full-scale run at Summit County at the airport. So those fears are real, Mr. Fusco, and our preparedness is really moving toward that goal of making sure we're prepared to serve the citizens of Akron in the region in the event we have a situation that's catastrophic that way.
Good. I guess, but like I said, it just feels low.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, in terms of this, and
Right.
I don't know, you know.
Yeah, let me just say that the funding that Deputy Mayor Brown referred to exists within the police and fire departments, and then there's also training, you know, throughout the city in regards to those emergency type situations.
It goes above and beyond just you two.
This budget right here that you're looking at on page 3.3 literally is just the phone charge for the phones that sit down in that room in the basement of City Hall.
Right,
That's all
I
that
get that,
represents.
but like I said, it's the training piece. It's the, you know, the protocols. Whenever something happens, does everyone know where to go? Does it, I mean, you know, we had the blackout, I guess, in 2000, whatever year that was, and that was, you know, we were out for 48 hours or whatever the case was, but like I said, it just really feels low. That's what I'm telling you, and I would ask that, you know, let's just be ready whenever something happens, and if you guys feel comfortable with it, I said, I know the county, and I don't know what they do, maybe you could share with us one, you know, offline, you know, what the county's doing, but I know that they have staff that's dedicated toward this, so I just want to make sure we're ready.
Sure, I would love to talk to you offline in detail about some of the things we're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, and secondly, is on 3.4, I'm just, I guess I'm asking, are we going to be adding people to the police and fire communications piece? It seems as though that we're adding some funds there, which I'm not adverse at all to whatsoever. And does this include, I assume this portion includes, I know we've been consolidating over time. Is this part of that?
So, in terms of labor in the 911 call center, which is what the budget on page 3-4 represents, we actually have the same number of staff, although we are budgeting, they hired a number of call dispatchers last year, so they got up to a higher level than they had been. Last year, we budgeted for those hires to come on later in the year. This year, they're budgeted for the entire year. In addition to that, we had some IT people that left, left the city that were charged to this budget in 2018. We are hiring one back. There's a pending hire of one of those people right now. We are filling those other two spots with 2 more call takers. So we are hiring 2 additional safety communications technicians to take calls. So that labor budget does go up. In addition to that, if you'll notice, the current expenditures line item goes up, so we are also adding some contractual services to replace those IT people that we lost, because they do have a huge need right now in the call center for a number of IT functions that are not being met right now. So we do plan to bring in some contractual employees to fill that void right now.
Gotcha. And are we at capacity in terms of the equipment that we currently have? Because we're working now, we're taking calls together with the sheriff, right, on the same?
Yeah, we'll let Captain Harding address that.
Just that we are, I know over the last several years we've been trying to consolidate and make, I don't know the proper term, but super call centers due to state mandates. And we're with Stowe right now. Who is it that we're working with in terms of taking phone calls?
So
911 calls.
So 911 calls, we're just handling the city of Akron right now. The issue with Stowe was the combining of our phone system.
Okay.
Our phone system, we have probably the preeminent phone system in the area, and within that, we were able to partition part of that, and Stowe was able to come off of our hub to handle their phone calls.
Okay.
We don't answer those.
Okay.
However, the positive with that was in the event of emergency, if something did happen locally and we needed to relocate, because we're part of the phone system, we could share those resources and log in maybe at their site there. That was the advantage for going with Stowe. But they're not directly answering our calls.
Okay, but in terms of the consolidation of 911 and where that's at, I know over time we're supposed to consolidate with others.
So there's a limited 4 PSAPs in the county. Right. We are one of them. The county has one that are funded. There is a consolidation conversation going on within the county and some other jurisdictions, but the city of Akron is not part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Current expenditures, other, said that we're contracting, that, and that's reflected in the $557,000
Correct.
number.
Yes.
Is that going to be, do we anticipate that's going to be something that will continue here on out, or?
That will be part of, as Mr. Hardy and Mr. Pettit talked about, that's part of the kind of ongoing look at our future of IT.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments? All right, move ahead.
Let's back up.
Okay, we're going to have communications come up.
We're
and-
backing up to page 3-1.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, members of council. John Heffernan, Communications. Just want to go over a couple accomplishments. We responded over 1,923 requests for repairs. We had our radio department did approximately half of those. Are there any questions on any of those accomplishments as far as what we've...
Questions,
in the past
comments?
year?
Excuse me. Please proceed. Ms. Sims?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on the 16 full-time employees, are these concrete 16?
So we actually did add one position. It's currently unfilled. So we budgeted 15 last year. We did add one position here as they are. There are a number of fiber laying projects going on right now. So they are hiring, I believe it's going to be a cable line and utility worker in 2000. There are currently 3 people under that. I think they have 13 full-time right now. So we're going to allow them to go to 16 full-time in 2019.
So just an FYI, that's what makes, I think, Lock 3 a little more glaring, because you got $455,000 for 3 people, and then you got $479,000 for 16.
Right, well, so Lot 3 is very heavily, it uses a lot of part-time employees in comparison with most departments.
That's why I'm asking you to, kind of combine them in a way that you can see what would be equivalent to an FTE, right?
Okay, well, we could show you the breakdown between full-time and part-time in the budget, so we can get you that breakdown.
For which one?
For all of them.
For this one, it's not, Mr. Fricker, you do a great job. I love talking to you. I'm just saying, for our purposes, when you look at this, I realize there's a whole slew of folks at Lock 3, but there should be some way for us to break it down to full-time so that it makes sense. Because when I look at 16 employees for $500,000, that makes a whole lot of sense to me. When I look at 3 for nearly the same amount, it doesn't. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So thank you.
Mr. Heffernan, thank you very, very much.
Mr. Chair, just one quick question.
Yes, Ms. Mobley?
The part-time people, do they get overtime?
Typically not, because the part-time people are typically limited to 28 hours a week. I think there are some very minor exceptions to that, but for the most part, part-time people are working a maximum of 28 hours a week and therefore do not get overtime.
But if you work at night versus during the day, do you get paid extra?
No,
No, the same pay scale.
correct.
It's kind of like a first, second, third shift, and I can imagine part-timers are splitting their days and hours out.
At Lot 3, they work probably every shift, and depending on when it is, for example, during our Rib Fest, those part-time employees might in fact earn overtime. So it just depends on what's going on.
All right. So you said over 1,900, so that's over,
Yeah, 1,923 requests.
that's over 7 a day on a 5-day work week. So thank you for what you do, and, you know, we don't know and we don't see, and that's okay. We care, but,
And that doesn't account for hours. That's just,
Right.
that could have taken 10 hours to fix that.
yeah, well, thank you very, very much, Mr. Heffernan. All right, thank you. All right, how do you have up next here? Is that, we ready for fire? All right, Chief Tucker, welcome.
It starts in section 6-1.
Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you. Welcome. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start off by thanking Mayor Horrigan, Deputy Mayor Brown, the Mayor's Cabinet, City Council, and our citizens for supporting us with not just Issue 4, but in other ways as well. 2018 was a year of a large number of accomplishments for us. First off, we had over 47,000 calls for emergencies, which comes to an average of about 129 runs every day. And that's an increase of almost 2,000 calls. I am happy to report that as of March 18th, we will start a new cadet class of 15 that will bring us to full staff, which will be 363 firefighters. We also have the QRT response vehicle that directly is associated with the opioid crisis. We've had 384 visits in 2018, and that resulted in 71 patient contacts. The ARV, which responds to the less critical calls, we've had 1,189 calls for an average of 6 per day. The fire prevention project for smoke alarms, as Deputy Mayor Brown said, we had 4,000 smoke detectors installed in 700 homes, which is a pretty good size increase. Back in 2017, we installed 1,300 detectors in 400 homes, so I'm happy with that increase. We performed over 5,000 fire inspections and more than 800 plan and site reviews. We continue to try to provide for the health and safety of our firefighters. As many of you know, between 64 and 68% of firefighters nationwide come down with some type of cancer in their lifetime, so there is a concentrated effort to try to decrease those numbers in the city of Akron. And so our second set of fire gear purchased went out to all firefighters, and that effort is completed. We have extractors now in every fire station. We have new thermal imagers, and those thermal imagers have already resulted in saving a few citizens' lives, and it also increases the ability to get in and save firefighters that get trapped in a fire. Station 4, new Station 4, which has administrative offices, is well on track to be completed this summer. As well as Station 2 is estimated to be open by the end of July, and those projects are moving along at the right pace. They'll be completed on time, as it looks. Now, with that, looking at goals for 2019, we want to maintain our excellent emergency services, continue fire prevention efforts, including our smoke detector installations. Although we installed smoke detectors in 700 homes, I'm happy with that number, but I think we can increase it. I'm never going to say that what we've done is enough. We want to continue to utilize cost reduction practices as good as possible so that we are very good stewards of the money that has been allocated to us. We want to maintain our fleet of emergency vehicles, so that includes refurbishments and the work that our fire maintenance facility does. We want to make sure in 2019 we fulfill all of our Issue 4 promises to the public. So that includes a new ladder truck for Station 4, Station 2 and 4 is being completed on time, and we are going to increase our effort to identify grant opportunities. With that, in closing, I'd like to say that I really want to thank our citizens for the support they've demonstrated to us through Issue 4. It really has made a huge difference. We think that our budget is respectful of the resources that the community has entrusted to us. I want to say thank you to Diane Miller-Dawson, Steve Fricker, Cindy Donnell, Kim Gooseman, and Mike Wheeler for their help and support. And thank you to the men and women of the Akron Fire Department for the work that they do. And I'm sure you have some questions.
Thank you. Obviously, first question, the rise in labor of $1.5 million, is that due to, new cadets, is it?
So that is due primarily to the firefighters that are currently on the SAFER grant, so that pays for 25 firefighters. That grant expires at the end of March, and those firefighters, so the personnel count of 203 does not reflect those 25. There is a separate page in here for the SAFER grant fund, but starting in April, those firefighters will transition over to the general fund, and so those dollars are needed there to pay those salaries.
And then fringe benefits fell by roughly $500,000.
Yeah, so that is a combination of a couple different things. We had a 13th pension payment last year. So our 2018 costs in the fringe category went up a little bit. And then the per month charge for medical benefits is going down by $100 per employee in 2019. So, plus there were retirement payouts that hit in 2018 as well that make up part of that fringe number. Those are when firefighters retire or any city employee retires, their accumulated leave hours are paid out. So that's reflected in that fringe category.
Okay. You said there was a drop of $100+ per employee when it comes to medical benefits?
In terms of what we are charging per month, yes.
Okay. Good time to be fire chief, building new buildings and getting new, ladders, and
it's an exciting time. It really is, because it's been a long time.
Yeah,
it's been a long time.
I think everybody here has expressed. This is not a numbers comment, but everybody here has expressed, and if you would please, to the men that have had to witness some pretty horrific things this past year with the loss of lives, and just extend City Council's gratitude for what they do, and probably for images that they carry with them. I would think quite a bit.
I will do. Thank you.
Number-related questions or comments? Ms. Amobian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that part of the building on Thornton is administrative. I haven't been to your office, but you did tell me that you have papers everywhere. So what do you guys plan to do? You're going to scan, you have equipment to scan all those forms and stuff in, or you're going to get rid of them, or what?
Well, since we moved to the Ocasek building, we actually took a great effort to try to minimize the paperwork that we were going to take with us, knowing that we were going to have to do a double move. So a lot of that stuff has already been reviewed, and we looked at what we needed versus stuff we could get rid of. So a lot of it we were able to get rid of. But there is a good percentage of items that we will need to scan and take with us electronically. So that's an ongoing process.
I tell you that when I first heard about the fire station going between the school and the church, I was trying to figure out how you're going to fit it there. So I've been watching it being built, and I'm just amazed at how huge the building is. And then I look at the Thornton Street location now. I said it's amazing with people who are engineers who understand that kind of stuff. I guess they know what they're doing. So I can see, are you on the back side or just top, the administrative part?
Administration is going to be on the second floor, but it is toward the rear.
Okay, okay. Now the building looks good.
Thank you.
Really coming along.
Any questions, comments? Ms. Keith?
Chief Tucker, thank you so very much for being at the helm. And you had to go through a lot of years without having the second set of gear and the extractor and all that. So thank you for hanging in there and being such an example. Can you tell me how much that ladder truck costs?
That ladder truck is approximately $1.2 million.
When we get that ladder truck, will we still need to equip it in some ways?
I think that price is fully equipped with most of what we need. There are going to be some items that are going to be specific to Akron that we'll have to add to it, but it should have equipment on it when it arrives.
I think it's real important as I convey this to my residents that these are not nickel-dime items, that these items are, especially a fire truck, is a huge purchase, and if taken care of, as we have done with our other ones, we can see them running for a little bit of extended life. We certainly have gotten our good out of what we've had, but so nice to know the number there, and I appreciate. I might get your hard copy of what you have done so far so that I can push that out a little bit, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, and I think this concludes our day.
If I could, I need to ask everyone on council to please, please, please help us recruit for both police and fire. We're going to make available to you palm cards. We need you to bring, have those individuals, as you get palm cards, come to our website, akroncops.org for police. But don't wait until he needs folks in September. Start recruiting people today at your restaurants, places of worship, wherever.
When will the date be for the testing for fire?
Fall.
In the fall, okay.
Yes.
All righty, so we have a little bit of time.
And we are actually already asking every current firefighter to give us at least 5 good names.
At least.
So,
Yeah, I had lunch with the police officer the other day, and he gave me my bag of cards and T-shirts, and I've been going to ward meetings telling folks about the opportunity, so I hope we get some good candidates, I really do, from the city at least, because I think they will stay.
Okay, we will adjourn, and then we'll resume tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and we'll begin with municipal court. Thank you.
Thank you.